All right, we're good to go. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Brian. Okay. All right. So we are showing 9:30 now. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Okay. So, we're going to continue going through First Kings. Today we'll be on to chapters 7 and 8, but we also will be covering the book of Ecclesiastes. So we're just going to read through one of the chapters of that. But as to do a recap of last week. So what happened last week? Solomon is set up in chapters 5 and 6 with peace. There's peace all around him. A lot of the reasoning of that peace is because of David's obedience to God, and he had really good alliances with Hiram of Tyre. He was that king who was the pagan king, but he had really good relations with him. So that sets up Solomon with peace. David also gives the plans for the temple to Solomon, and then Solomon then builds the temple. It takes about 7 years to build. So that brings us to the point now. Solomon's built the temple, and then we're going to go, before we get into chapter 7 today, I want us to start with Ecclesiastes. So go ahead and turn to Ecclesiastes. I'll get into the reading in a second of it, but what we know of the book of Ecclesiastes, it's credited to Solomon, but a good portion of it could be written in things that Solomon said, but a lot of modern scholars say it wasn't directly written by Solomon himself. So there's one of the big things about the book of Ecclesiastes that he got credited for writing was there's a lot of mentions of Persian after the the Assyrian captivity of the Jews. So like that hadn't already happened yet, if it was written directly by Solomon. So a lot of the references made make scholars believe that it wasn't directly written by Solomon. If it was, then it was weaved together by a preacher or a writer at a different time later on. So let's get into chapter 1, Ecclesiastes chapter 1. All right. The words of the teacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem, vanity of vanities, says the teacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanities. Now I want us to stop real quick. When they say vanity, the writer here, the actual Hebrew word comes from it means the word vapor. It doesn't actually mean the same as vanity, the sin that, you care what others think of you and they care what you look like. It's a different kind of vanity. They use the word vapor. Some translations will show, like NIV should show meaningless. Mine says is the NRSV, so it shows vanity. What do people gain from all the toil at which they toil under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hurries to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north, and round goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they continue to flow. All things are wearisome, more than one can express. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, or the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It has already been in the ages before us. The people of long ago are not remembered, nor will they be any remembrance of people yet to come by those who come after them. I, the teacher, when the king over Israel and Jerusalem applied my mind to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is unhappy business that God has given to human beings to be busy with. I saw all the deeds that are done under the sun, and see all is vanity and chasing after the wind. What is crooked cannot be made straight, and what is lacking cannot be counted. I said to myself, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were over Jerusalem before me. And my mind has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I applied my mind to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceive that it also is but a chasing after wind. For in much wisdom is much vexation, and those who increase knowledge increase sorrow. Okay, this is pretty dark. What I want you guys to talk about in your groups, our first question: is there any positivity in this? We hear Solomon. He's talking about everything is meaningless. There's nothing that means. Is there any positivity in this? What is he trying to get at this chapter? So go ahead and discuss your groups. I'll give you guys 5 minutes. Hey, good morning. Yeah, yeah, no problem. All right, we can wrap up your conversations on that. So, what are some of the things? Is there any positive in this? What is the writer going through in this? Any thoughts from your table? Go ahead, Brian.
It seems like that it's very dark. You know, the author is searching for meaning in life.
Yeah.
In the first chapter and the second chapter.
Yeah.
It seems like it's not good.
Yeah.
There's nothing good in this chapter. Saying that there's nothing positive. It seems like it's very gloomy for the country.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything is meaningless. Any other thoughts? Go ahead.
One of the things that we were talking about was talks about the generations come and the generations go.
Yeah.
How quickly, yeah, how certain people are. For instance, our youngest granddaughter, she has children. Well, probably those children will never know who we were. There might be a name,
Yeah.
but that's all. We'll have been forgotten.
Yeah.
And the only thing that maybe we can attribute is things that we have taught.
Yeah.
Things that we have passed down. Those may remain from one generation to another.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great point out. I saw another hand back here. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. Did I see another hand over here? Okay. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. 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 Absolutely. All the physical things are wearisome. Yeah. Go ahead. Yep. Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's all meaningless if it's not focused on God. And I think this another really interesting part of this chapter. How did anybody notice um, the author when he says, uh, have you there is nothing new under the sun. So I think this is very telling to. So if we think about how things are in our in the current political cycle and the news says, how many times have you heard in the last 2 years unprecedented? That word is a pretty common word. And so we get stuck in our mind of, oh, this is an unprecedented time. This is like it's never been before. This is a real problem. We're in real trouble. right here it says there's nothing new under the sun. But this stuff has been happening since the beginning of time. So I always point out to that point. And so that's Ecclesiastes. There's the author's going through some things. Do we think, right, did I see a hand? Or you're just, sorry. I thought I saw a hand. Do we think Solomon, I asked in our group, do we think Solomon this is before he was king, or do we think this is the writings after he was already been king? Yeah, he's already been king. He's already experienced, already done, had the material things, and so we're going to get into chapter 7 now. So we're going to go into 1 Kings chapter 7. I'll give you some time to turn there. We're going to do verses 1 through 22, and then we're going to go skip ahead to 48 through the end of the chapter. Yeah. Yeah, I can. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, chapter 7, 1 Kings 7. So Solomon has built the temple, and he's moving on to his own palace. Solomon was building his own house 13 years, and he finished his entire house. He built the house of the forest in Lebanon, 100 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high, built on 4 rows of cedar pillars, with cedar beams on the pillars. It was roofed with cedar on the 45 rafters, 15 in each row, which were on pillars. There were window frames in the rows. All the doorways and the doorposts had 4-sided frames, opposite facing each other in the 3 rows. He made the hall of pillars 50 cubits long and 30 cubits wide. There was a porch in front with pillars and a canopy in front of them. He made the hall of the throne where he was to pronounce judgment, the hall of justice, covered with cedar from floor to floor. His own house, where he would reside in the other court back of the hall, was of the same construction. Solomon also made a house like this hall for Pharaoh's daughter, whom he had taken in marriage. All of these were made of costly stones, cut according to measure, sawed with saws, back and front from the foundation and from the outside to the great court. The foundation was costly stones, huge stones, and stones of 8 and 10 cubits. There were costly stones above, cut to measure in cedar wood. The great court had 3 courses of dressed stone to 1 layer of cedar beams all around, so that they had an inner court of the house of the Lord and the vestibule of the house. So he's building his own palace. It tells the dimensions and everything of, it's telling us how it was built, what the materials it was built of. So then now we go to verse 13. We hear the products of Hiram the bronze worker. Now King Solomon invited and received Hiram from Tyre. He was different than the actual king of Tyre. He was the son of the widow of the tribe of Naphtali, whose father, a man of Tyre, has been an artisan in bronze. He was full of skill, intelligence, and knowledge in working bronze. He came to King Solomon and did all his work. He cast 2 pillars of bronze, 18 cubits was the height of the one, and the chord of the 12 cubits would encircle it. The second pillar was the same. He also made 2 capitals of molten bronze to set up on the tops of the pillars. The height of the one capital was 5 cubits, and the height of the other capital was 5 cubits. There were nets of checker work with wreaths of chain work for the capitals on top of the pillars, 7 for the capital and 7 for the other capital. He made the columns with 2 rows around each lattice work to cover the capitals that were above the pomegranates. He did the same with the other capitals. Now the capitals were on the top of the pillars in the vestibule of lily work 4 cubits high. The capitals were on the 2 pillars and also the rounded projection that was beside the lattice work. There were 200 pomegranates in a row all around, and with the other capital, he set up the pillars at the vestibule of the temple. He set up the pillar on the south and called it Yashin, and he set up the pillar on the north and called it Boaz. On the tops of the pillars was lily work. Thus the work of the pillars was finished. Okay, so we have all this going on. Solomon is building his own palace, and I had specifically read Ecclesiastes before we did all this, because here you have Solomon in Ecclesiastes saying everything is meaningless, but then he obviously really cares about this stuff during this chapter. He's acquiring all kinds of chariots later on. So all of chapter 7, when we read through this, I want to discuss in your groups, is chapter 7 actually meaningless, just like Ecclesiastes said, or is there some form of worship for this, or did Solomon have a change of heart later in age? So think about all of those things when you're discussing in your groups. So is it meaningless? Is chapter 7 meaningless? We're just sharing all these. Or is there actually a point to it, and it's a form of worship? So I want you guys to discuss in your group. Think about that. All right. We'll come back. All right. So in your groups, did you discuss this whole chapter where he's building a palace for himself? Is this meaningless, or is there a form of worship in this? So what were you guys' thoughts? Go ahead. Yeah. 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 Absolutely. That's a great point. It's a great point. Anything else you guys discussed in your groups? Go ahead, Jay. Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Go ahead, John. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. And one of the things we talked about, in the group up here, is all of this that's being done in chapter 7 isn't necessarily meaningless if God is at the center of it. Because Amos brought up a really good point. Um, Maybe the grand palace and the temple is partially to show what God can do. And there are very skilled tradesmen that they have hired. And worship is kind of a 24-hour thing. Um, they are using their trades to worship God and build something that just shows that God's power and his beauty and the skills that he's given people. Now, the fine line is where we divert from it being about God, doing something and building something amazing, and then it becomes about us. That's the dangerous part, and I think that's something Solomon really wrestles with when he starts to acquire all the chariots, He starts to acquire wives. He starts to acquire all kinds of different things. Is he doing it for God, or is he doing it for himself? And I think when we get into later chapters, we're going to see some real answers on that. Mark, did I see you have your hand up a little bit ago?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the distinction between the palace and the temple. The palace is kind of recognizing Solomon.
Yeah.
The temple is recognizing God.
Yeah.
And it's a switch from we used to worship in tents and we were moving around,
Mm-hmm.
and now we've settled in one spot. We're building something to honor God that's permanent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we're going to get into chapter 8 now. That's going to discuss where their worship kind of transitions from, the tent. They had the Ark of the Covenant that followed, that is where God's presence was. They're going to move that into the temple, and we're going to see how that goes. So go ahead and move on to chapter 8. We're going to do some parts of chapter 8. We're not going to do the whole thing because it's 68 verses. So, but go ahead and start reading chapter 8 with me. All right. So then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribe, the leaders of the ancestral houses of the Israelites, before King Solomon in Jerusalem, to bring the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord out of the city of David, which is Zion. All the people of Israel assembled to King Solomon at the festival in the month of Ithanim, which is the 7th month. And all the elders of Israel came, and the priests carried the ark. So they brought up the ark of the Lord, the tent of the meeting, and all the holy vessels that were in the tent. The priests and the Levites brought them. Real quick, does anybody know who the priests were supposed to be? What tribe did they come from? The Levites. So this goes back. The Levites specifically were priests for a very specific reason. It wasn't picked out of random. This goes all the way back to Mount Sinai. So when Moses goes up, collects the Ten Commandments, comes back down, what are they doing? They're building a golden calf. Now, the Levites were the only tribe that had a problem with this. So God then makes them the firstborns. And they are the priests. So they're the only ones who can actually go into the temple. This is important for a multiple number. Why do we think it's important that in this situation the Levites are the only ones who's allowed to go in? Because it's what God told them to do, for one. But if we remember at the very first week when we were doing a breakdown, as we headed into 1 Kings, there was a judge, and his name was Micah, who said that pretty much any tribe can be priest. He created a false priesthood. This is why this is important, that they share, that it's specifically Levites who are handling the Ark of the Covenant. So just a little footnote there. All right, we are on. Then the priest brought the ark. We're on verse 6. So then the priest brought the ark of the covenant of the Lord to its place in the inner sanctuary of the house, in the most holy place, underneath the wings of the cherubim. For the cherubim spread out their wings over the place of the ark, so that the cherubim made the covering above the ark and its poles. The poles were so long that the ends of the poles were seen from the holy place in front of the inner sanctuary. But they cannot be seen from outside. They are there to this day. There was nothing in the ark except the two tablets of stone that Moses had placed there at Horeb. Okay, real quick, does anybody know? So there used to be 3 things in the Ark of the Covenant. This is, all right, yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Anybody know who that the other 2 things were? Yeah, and now they're not there. So, we don't know what happened to them, but very good. So, yeah, now there's only the tables of stone. Yeah. I don't know. I would imagine that was part of the plans that David gave him. That was the plan all along, is to get the ark into the temple, so that way God's presence could reside there. So, in Second Chronicles, like the end of Second Chronicles, there was nothing in the ark except the 2 tablets of stone that Moses had placed there at Horeb, where the Lord made a covenant with the Israelites when they came out of the land of Egypt. And when the priests came out of the holy place, a cloud filled the house of the Lord, so that the priests could not stand to minister because of the cloud. For the Lord filled the house of the Lord. Then Solomon said, the Lord has said that he would dwell in thick darkness. I've built an exalted house and a place for you, and then dwell in forever. Then the king turned around and blessed all the assembly of Israel. While all the assembly of the Israel stood, he said, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who with his hand has fulfilled what he promised with his mouth to my father David, saying, Since that day I brought my people, Israel, out of Egypt. I have chosen a city from any of the tribes of Israel in which to build a house, that my name be there. But I chose David to be over my people Israel. My father David had it in mind to build a house for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. But the Lord said to my father David, You did well to consider building a house for my name. Nevertheless, you shall not build the house, but your son, who shall be born to you, shall build the house for my name. Now the Lord has upheld the promise that he made, and for I have risen in the place of my father David. I sit on the throne of Israel, as the Lord promised, and I have built the house for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. There I have provided a place for the ark, in which the covenant of the Lord that he made with our ancestors when he brought them out of the land of Egypt. Okay, so this is Solomon's speech. It's very powerful. He's talking about the history of the Israelites, how God made a promise to them that he would bring them out of Israel. And then he does that, and he's built a house now for the place for the ark to go. It says that God's presence, it was a cloud. It was so overpowering that the priests had to stop their worship. So I kind of want you guys to discuss in your group. I mean, this is something that is so incredible that they firsthand, the presence of God filled their temple. I want you guys to discuss at your tables, is there a point in time where you felt God's presence take over? And what did it feel like? So take 5-10 minutes to discuss that. right. So we'll come back together. And let's hear what I know Pat had said she's got a time where she's felt God's presence. Go ahead and share with us. Oh, yeah. 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 Yeah, I do. I think I was like I had just gotten here when we did it. It was amazing. I was about 7 or 8. Yeah. It was I do remember that though. Yeah. I do remember that being very powerful even back then. I still remember it. What was that? Uh, I don't know the exact. I mean, it was mostly hymns. But, but go. We had one. Yeah. Yeah. During Songfest. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. You can go ahead. Yeah.
I felt God's presence really, really good the other night, Friday night.
Okay.
My granddaughter usually goes out and hangs with her friends, but she doesn't have very good friends,
Yeah.
And on the weekend, she goes to school all week, but on the weekend, she goes hang out with her friends. I don't say nothing because she's 23. I can't say much about that. But she said, I went to a gas station, Grandma. She came back 10 minutes after she left. And I thought, wow, She said, I went to a gas station, Grandma, and I paid for my gas and forgot to pump it. She said, I took off and realized I forgot to pump it. Went to another gas station, paid for it, paid for gas there, went back, got the gas. Then I was going to go get my hair done at my friend's, and my friend called and said, hey, why don't we just go out? She said, I didn't feel right. I didn't feel right about going out. She said, God said to me, don't do that. Don't do this. She said, I know it was God. I know. And I felt his presence when she was talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had felt something was going to go wrong. Well, something did go wrong. So
Oh.
I got shot.
Oh man. Wow.
And she said, I know God was talking to me. I know he was talking to me.
Yeah.
And she felt his presence. So
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Any others at the head? Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 I love it, and I kind of it goes alongside with the Israelites. What did they do? They, they've struggled to fully allow God's presence, and they've been through so much. They come out of Egypt, they go to the wilderness, and then they build the temple. And then we're at this moment with Israel where Solomon builds the temple, and the ark is in the temple, and God's presence flows. Like, this is one of the peak moments of the Israelites right here. They're surrendering themselves to the God, and the sense of relief that you have, the peace that you felt, I'm sure they kind of felt the same way. So I think that's, thank you for sharing that. Got another one. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And so often we look at godly people who teach and speak, and we think, oh man, they must have worked so hard. And they have in a lot of senses, but God has given them the wisdom. God has given them a gift, and I think that's an amazing example to bring up. We got time for one more. Go ahead. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's one of those, you when you experience death and life, both like when you have a newborn child too, it's this uncontrollable sense you can't help but feeling the presence of God. So I think those are all amazing examples. Thanks for sharing those. And as a summary, before we end today, we're going to get into chapters 9, 10, and 11 next week to wrap up Solomon's. This will be my last week next week. We're going to wrap up Solomon's life and we're going to look at the legacy he left after he left. But today, as a reminder, everything, if it's not centered around the worship of God, is meaningless. If you're working and you don't have God, it's meaningless. And that's the kind of message that Ecclesiastes shares, and then we kind of compared it to what it says in chapter 7, where Solomon is building his own palace, and all of this ends up being meaningless. All of these things he acquires are meaningless if there's not God centered around. So we're going to get into the next chapters. We're going to see some of the ways that Solomon puts himself first over God and starts to really make some real mistakes. And we see how it plays out for the rest of the Israelites too. So thank you for your participation today, and I'm going to go ahead and pray, and we'll be closed out. Dear God, we thank you for all that you've given us. We thank you for the examples in the Bible that you've given us, the stories and the wisdom shared. We thank you for allowing us to have this building where we can get together and talk more about you. And Lord, we are so thankful that there is nothing new under the sun that you haven't seen, Lord. You are all powerful, and you are amazing to us, and we love you and we praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.